This is CBC Vancouver News.
I think people are just extremely anxious about doing whatever they can to protect their own properties.
A handful of residents defy evacuation orders as wildfire grows closer to Fort Nelson. Fire crews are facing volatile conditions. Plus,
we heard loud and clear from our community that nobody should be priced out of their neighborhoods they call home.
Burnaby renters kicked out of their building by redevelopment are given keys to new homes at the same prices. Also,
it should be open by now. I think there's lots of money goes into bike paths and other infrastructure in the city.
It's not opening this weekend for the May long weekend.
Delayed repairs are being blamed for Kitts Pool not reopening in time for the May long weekend. Hello, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. We begin in northeastern BC with more evacuation orders. First for the Fort Nelson area as the fast-growing Parker Lake wildfire burns closer to that community. Officials are warning of volatile conditions for crews, but firefighters are digging in to fight to save homes. Our Yvette Brand is in the Peace region and tells us some residents are defying those orders to leave.
The wind's picking up now. So they're rolling in, they're setting up on everybody's houses, they're setting up sprinklers, structure protection.
Fort Nelson mechanic Ian Langstaff is refusing to leave town. He says he has too much to lose.
So we're going to do our best to protect our own house today.
The volatile Parker Lake fire has grown to some 53 square kilometers, and as of this afternoon, it's less than 3 kilometers from town.
You know, we started to feel a little more sick yesterday, thinking about it.
This teacher is one of thousands stuck in Fort St. John, 400 kilometers from home. No idea if she's going back.
We're trying to stay positive, but it's hard, but we're just so thankful that there are so many people who are there trying to save our community.
Crews in Fort Nelson are preparing for a last stand against the flames, but time is running out.
If the wind comes up, this will be over before anybody can get here. So we're doing what we can with everything that we've got in the community. We've got some great contractors here. They've got some excellent equipment. They're out there doing their best.
More crews are joining the fight against northeastern BC's wildfires, but the region is bone dry from years of drought.
With no precipitation, no major precipitation in the forecast ahead, winds that can pick up at any time, let's just say we are extremely concerned.
Evacuees are so hungry for news, people are posting their own security camera feeds, small windows into the empty town. People holed up in hotels with family and pets are eager for any good news.
Yeah, you automatically think about those other communities in Lytton and Fort McMurray, and you think of the worst case scenario. It's hard to get that out of your mind.
Holding hope and family close at the mercy of the wind. Yvette Brand, CBC News, Fort St. John.
Also in the Peace region, the Doig River First Nation has this evening issued an evacuation order for its entire reserve. That's because of an out-of-control wildfire that was discovered on Sunday. Officials say the fire has since grown to around 250 hectares.
Most of that growth is attributed to obviously the dry conditions on site, but they have been experiencing a wind event in the area today. The winds have died down overnight, and right now we're actually seeing growth away from the community.
Everyone living on the reserve has been asked to go to Fort St. John immediately. That's roughly 40 kilometers away, and as we heard from Yvette, that's also where thousands of evacuees from the Parker Lake fire are sheltering. And late tonight, the evacuation order was expanded to an area north of the reserve. So in total, more than 100 people in this new fire zone have been told to leave their homes. Well, meanwhile, there are other much larger fires in northeastern BC that have been burning for many months. They're known as holdover fires, ones that never completely went out last season and are once again posing a threat this season. Chad Pawson continues our coverage.
Holdover fires, ones that overwinter, also known as zombie fires, are part of the sudden BC wildfire threat. While the phenomenon is not new, it's a troubling legacy from last year's record-setting wildfire season.
The winter conditions are what put out a lot of holdover fires. In this case, what we've seen is that due to higher temperatures and persistent drought through from last year, many of these holdover fires were not put out the way that they normally are.
The main fire threatening Fort Nelson is not a holdover fire, but people on the ground there are worried that resources required for nearby zombie fires are taking them away from the Parker Lake fire. One resident who stayed behind to fight the fire says the government should have been better prepared.
Yeah, I hate to point the finger at our government, but they need to do better.
But the BC Wildfire Service says they knew this was coming.
We did anticipate the holdover fires. We planned for the holdover fires.
Wildfire fighters in BC say they did take action, but some holdover fires were simply too far underground to be noticed.
I am proud of the BC Wildfire Service team and everyone in the Northeast for coming together to do everything we could to plan for these fires. But obviously, they have come out of their existing boxes from last year, and we continue to respond as we can.
Wildfire experts say they're not surprised that BC is facing more severe holdover fires when you consider the vast amount of land that burned last year. And as temperatures increase and drought persists, they're expecting more so-called zombie fires. It's another sobering marker of the wildfire threat that the province is facing, something the BC Wildfire Service says it is adapting to. Chad Pawson, CBC News, Victoria.
Well, from the north to the south, fire crews from across the Kootenays gathered in Cranbrook over the weekend for a provincial wildfire training program. As our Corey Bullock reports, teams simulated wildfire scenarios as the possibility of deployment becomes more real day by day.
For Cranbrook Fire Chief Scott Driver, knowing his crews and community are protected from wildfire is paramount.
I think it's really good for everybody's communities knowing that we can all lean on each other.
Today, more than a dozen teams from across the Kootenay region took part in engine boss training.
We are teaching structural firefighters the tactics they will need to effectively and safely operate in the wildland-urban interface. And we're going out into neighborhoods and actually running them through the tactical scenarios that they would actually use on the fires.
Watson says these scenarios have been used in real life in places like Lytton and West Kelowna. The course has been offered 40 times across the province in the last 3 years, and about 1,600 structural firefighters have gone through the training.
And we are seeing it make a difference in the field year after year. So,
as BC's wildfire landscape continues to change, so does the need for fire crews to adapt their training.
It's quite a bit different than dealing with structural fires. Generally in a municipality, the fire department deals with one house at a time. We're working on those specific methods that we use to protect as many homes as we can.
The fires that we've seen in the last few years are clearly getting more intense. They're burning hotter and longer and later into the night. So it's absolutely crucial that we adapt our tactics.
Driver pointed to the St. Mary's River fire near Cranbrook last year as an example of the importance of working together.
We knew when we arrived on scene that this was going to be bigger than the fire department could manage, and so immediately we called for resources in that situation. And in very short order, there was 16 fire trucks that arrived from around the province to come and help.
Something he says gives everyone peace of mind as BC sees an early start to the wildfire season.
It's an honor to be part of the system, and it's really comforting knowing that there are trained resources like we have here today that are able to come and support us.
Another way these firefighters are keeping each other and their communities safe. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
We are getting a clearer and starker look at just how dry our province is. New satellite photos show the severity of drought in some parts of BC. In these infrared images processed by the Canadian Space Agency, you can see Stewart River in Fort St. James in May of last year compared to April of this year, where the river appears more shallow and narrow. And have a look at Prince George last May, where the Nechako and Fraser rivers join. Just a year later, you can see how exposed the riverbeds and sandbars are. And it's not just BC fighting wildfires right now. There's a fire burning not far from a community in Manitoba. Residents of Cranberry Portage were ordered to evacuate from there over the weekend.
They've been deploying sprinklers in the community, ensuring that all structures of value in homes and all of those structures remain standing, and all of those sprinklers remain working well, and that has been successful. The fire itself is still a very dangerous fire, so our evacuation notice remains.
And in Alberta, there are fires burning near Grand Prairie and Fort McMurray. The BC government is taking steps to make sure rents stay affordable for low-income people in the downtown east side. The housing minister says some people living in single-room occupancy buildings, or SROs, are being exploited by landlords.
City of Vancouver reached out to us over the last 2 months with serious concerns that people were being displaced, that landlords and SROs were using sometimes illegal tactics to evict people.
The province has brought in legislative changes that would see bylaws limit rent increases between tenancies at SROs. The provincial government is also making changes to BC's Name Act.
This bill will prevent convicted criminals and individuals who have committed offences causing serious harm to others from evading accountability and avoiding the negative consequences of their actions by legally changing their names.
Last month, the opposition BC United introduced a bill to amend the legislation after learning child killer Alan Schoenborn had legally changed his name. Schoenborn killed his 3 young children in Merritt in 2008, but was found not criminally responsible. After changing his name, he asked the BC Review Board to put a ban on publishing his new name. This was just recently. That request was rejected, but in the future, the province wants to prevent some criminals from being able to hide behind a new name. A group of students at UBC Okanagan are the latest to set up a pro-Palestinian encampment on campus. They're joining the calls to have universities divest from ties to Israel. About 24 protesters gathered early this morning to pitch their tents. And as with some other protesters at similar encampments across the country, they covered their faces and refused to provide names, citing fears of being harassed online. It comes a few weeks after students at UBC's Point Grey campus set up an encampment there. In Burnaby, officials say renters kicked out of their building by redevelopment are moving into new homes at the older prices. They see a new affordable rental building as a sign of progress against so-called demevictions. But as Liam Britton is finding out, at least one advocate is pushing for more protections.
For former residents of a now torn down 3-story building near Metrotown, officials promise that a homecoming is coming.
Officially, renters are moving in June. I've heard that some people are actually receiving their keys as early as Friday, which is just a couple days from now.
The Federal Citizen Services Minister says all residents of the former building were offered the chance to move in here into similar-sized new units at the same rent they were paying, plus the provincially allowed rent increases that would have accrued. About 2/3 said yes.
We got to keep looking for opportunities to accelerate, to do more. But right now, I'm just very happy for the people that are having the opportunity to live in this unit.
Officials say this building near Metrotown is the first built under Burnaby's rental use zoning policy against demevictions. Mayor Mike Hurley explained that under the policy, renters kicked out for redevelopment need to be provided new homes at the same price.
Redevelopment is a fact of life for any city with aging residential buildings. But we heard loud and clear from our community that nobody should be priced out of their neighborhoods they call home.
Now, if you're familiar with this area of Burnaby near Metrotown Mall and the SkyTrain line, you'll know that it's changed a lot over the last 10 or 15 years. The housing used to be pretty much all like this, 3-story walk-up apartment buildings built 50 to 70 years ago. But increasingly, it's become more like this tower behind me. And there's concerns that as the towers have ascended, so have housing prices. In the last decade, advocates and residents strongly protested demevictions. When the current mayor was elected in 2018, the issue loomed large. Murray Martin was a protester back then and is still an advocate today. He says Burnaby's renter protections might be the best in Canada, but more is needed, especially with what he says is the problem of developers buying out sometimes desperate tenants to avoid their obligations to top up their rent while housing is being built.
Lack of confidence in
in developers to follow through in paying their rent top-ups or building them a place. So some people take it for that reason. Other people take it for reasons like their the rent top-up isn't enough, so they just need immediate injection of cash because they're still out-of-pocket expenses from the eviction.
There was no talk of new policy today, but officials insist that this building is something to build on. Liam Britton, CBC News, Burnaby.
Despite the hopes of many, Kitsilano Pool will not be reopening in time for the May-long weekend. The Vancouver Park Board says too much rain in the spring has delayed repairs to the pool, leaving many we spoke with disappointed.
No, I didn't know that.
I'm okay with it. I mean, my daughter might be upset, but I'm okay.
Just kind of feel like, yeah, it should be open by now. I think there's lots of money goes into bike paths and other infrastructure in the city.
So that's sad. It was sad when they closed it, actually, like after that big storm. And I can't believe it took so long to fix it.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I love about it is obviously being right by the water, swimming, being outside.
It's the best outdoor swimming pool I see in my life.
Pity it's not opening this weekend for the May-long weekend, just because my daughters and I love to go to the beach and the pool at least 5 times a week.
I'm a mom who kind of depends on it. You know, we live in this neighborhood with the idea that, you know, in our summer our kids can come down to the pool and hang out.
Well, I walk in front on low tides, and I'm not sure if it's the pool leaking or if it's just groundwater going through, but you can see a lot of water flowing out of that area.
I was looking at it yesterday. It was getting quite full, so I thought it might be ready. There's quite a lot of water in there.
Yep, I probably won't get to swim outside till it opens again.
Still ahead in North Vancouver, woman is asking for help in finding her stolen chicken. We'll explain after the break. Welcome back. The Vancouver Canucks have climbed back into the lead of this playoff series with that 4-3 win over the Oilers, but they'll have to play their next game without defenseman Carson Soucy after things got a little chippy at the end of the final buzzer after last night's game.
And the Canucks have held on and win Game 3.
You can see Oilers captain Connor McDavid first slash Soucy. Soucy and Nikita Zadorov then cross-check McDavid. Soucy has since been suspended for 1 game, and Zadorov has been fined $5,000. That's the maximum allowed under the league's collective bargaining agreement. Connor McDavid was not punished. A North Vancouver couple wants your help finding their beloved pet chicken. They say it was stolen from their backyard coop. Take a look.
My wife and I were getting ready to head to bed. We have cameras installed in the chicken coop. We like to be able to keep an eye on them. Predators are a real risk for chickens, raccoons, and whatnot. So we have cameras, we have alerts, and we noticed one of them was missing. Scrolled back in the footage, couldn't see her all day. Scrolled back to 3 a.m. the previous morning. 2 young gentlemen came into the coop and they stole her. So they reached out, grabbed her roughly by the legs, possibly injuring her in the process, and they walked away with her fighting the whole way.
Shocked, appalled, heartbroken, sad, in an angry disbelief that anyone would do something like this. Like, it's a pet, and with where the coop is, you wouldn't know they were here unless you were a member of the community. Like, unless you walked by and looked over the hedge, you would never know they're here. The coop isn't even visible from the road. Like, and that's the especially heartbreaking part of it, because I've always been very proud about how these chickens are a valued part of the community. I love watching people lift their kids up over the hedge to watch the chickens, or ask to come in and meet them, or have that exposure for little kids of chickens as friends, not just food. And the school groups go by, you know, they pause and look over. And when I was campaigning yesterday, handing out flyers, everyone's just horrified that something like this would happen.
And here's a live shot of Burrard Inlet towards the North Shore. And the sunshine is set to stick around this week. Amy Bell will have your 5-day forecast next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
May is Asian Heritage Month, and we're celebrating by sharing the stories of amazing Asian Canadians who are making meaningful contributions in the community. Visit cbc.ca/BC Community to learn more. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Let's bring in Amy Bell for a first look at the forecast. And Amy, the weather on the weekend seemed to be that gift that just kept on giving, and maybe this week too.
It has been a lot of sunshine and very high temperatures over the weekend. We're going to keep the sun, but we're not going to have quite as high temperatures, which is good news for a lot of people that prefer it just a little bit more comfortable. I will start off by giving the forecast for Fort Nelson, of course, with the fire situation. We will see that widespread smoke becoming a bit more localized in the overnight hours. Westerly winds will ease, and then tomorrow we will see that smoke becoming a bit more widespread once again, and again could see gusts up to about 20 kilometers an hour, so something to keep an eye on, obviously. Dropping down to about 8 degrees in that area for tonight. And we could even see some showers mixed in with a chance of some snow even in Dease Lake, but for Prince George, Williams Lake, Okanagan, and the Kootenays, that's just a slight chance of showers that will kind of pass through in the overnight hours, and then by tomorrow we're setting up for more sunshine pretty much right across the province. One exception will be the North Coast. You are expected to get rain for tomorrow once again. 10 degrees for Terrace with some showers, same for Bella Coola at 14. Prince George, again, that risk of showers could hold over just into the early morning hours. Fort St. John up to about 15 degrees, and you will see sunshine, but of course with that smoke it will be very hazy and air quality definitely on the poor side. Kamloops looking at about 26 degrees with the mix of sun and cloud. 18 in Golden, and in Cranbrook we're looking at 20 degrees. So just cutting that temperature by a degree or two will make things a lot more comfortable. For the week ahead, though, we really are still trending towards very dry weather, which obviously is not ideal with all the fire risk. For us here in Metro Vancouver, tomorrow we're looking at sunshine, high of 17, but as you get further away from the water, we'll look at closer to 20 degrees. Much the same for Wednesday, and we see a bit of cloud coming into the mix for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, but no chance of precipitation until early next week.
We'll take those milder temperatures, I guess, while we have them. Thanks so much, Amy.
You're welcome.
And that is your late news for this Monday, May 13th. For news anytime, anywhere, download the free CBC News app. And you can always find us online at cbc.ca/BC. Thanks for being with us. Good night.